Welcome to The Blast Zone, the podcast where we dig up the bombs that shook Hollywood and try to find out why they went up in flames. This week, if your movie dies at the box office, you can't just print out another one. This is Mickey 17. Welcome to The Blast Zone.
Welcome to The Blast Zone.
We are not a podcast about bad movies. We are a podcast about movies that did badly.
That's right.
I am Jon Drake, in-house film critic of my Letterboxd account.
And I'm Yeun Dukes. I'm a person with thoughts and feelings, and some of them are about movies.
Movies like Mickey 17, which we'll be talking about today. But before we get into that, Ian, how are you doing this week?
Well, I got another personal healthcare update because why not? I'm working with my doctor to get a sleep study done and see if maybe I could have sleep apnea. It's possible my body's doing dumb stuff during the night and suffering for it during the day. I don't personally think that's very likely, but as with other types of tests and scans, I'm happy to check it out. Nice to at least rule this out, and maybe that could be one less thing to wonder about.
They're giving you the full boat lately. You're just getting all your potential health conditions checked out.
They're like, man, you're paying so much for your health care. Might as well use some of those insurance benefits.
When they want to test for sleep apnea, do they still make you like go into a room at the doctor's office and try to fall asleep? I feel like that would be the hardest part.
That's the old-fashioned way. You go to a lab. Now they have home gear. So I haven't heard from the sleep lab yet, but I believe I'm going to go pick up a set of equipment, which I'm going to then strap to myself and try to sleep through the night wearing.
They're like, your sleep was disrupted. Surely it's not the 40 pounds of equipment we sent you home with that you have to wear.
It might be the beeping battery strapped to my nipples. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, snoring does run in my family pretty badly. So I've been meaning to make sure it's just the run-of-the-mill snoring and not something more dangerous. But I've not gotten around to it yet because I don't want to know, because I don't want to be sleeping like Darth Vader.
I know. Then you got to wear a mask. Hopefully, if they do detect it, they'll give me some kind of in-between solution that does not involve sleeping in a pod like Vader.
Can't remember the term for his pod, but it had a name.
His egg that opens up and you see the back of his scarred head.
Yeah, that's what's keeping him alive. But it also looked kind of cozy. It was like a space sauna, so to speak.
Nice to have on a cold Death Star.
Speaking of cold, it's still fucking freezing in my neck of the woods, so that's been fun. But no snow lately, though. We're supposed to get some tomorrow, so I'm glad we're getting this out of the way in case like I lose power for the rest of the weekend.
Glad we're sneaking in a podcast.
But then I'm supposed to have people over on Sunday for my favorite thing, Magic the Gathering.
Oh, neat.
I'm making stuffed breads. Do you know what stuffed bread is? You could probably figure it out.
I can guess, but what gets stuffed in the bread?
So I'm making two. I'm doing a chicken parm stuffed bread and sausage and peppers.
Wow.
So I do it with pizza dough. Just wrap it up in pizza dough. Almost like a calzone, but more like a stromboli because it doesn't have the crescent moon shape.
That sounds fantastic, no matter what shape it's in.
And then I'm a big fan of putting sesame seeds on pizza dough in any form.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I'm going to put some sesame seeds right on top of there and maybe brush it with some garlic butter.
Man, I wish I could be part of that magical gathering.
You can always just come by and not play Magic. People do that for the food.
Yeah.
So next time you're in town, we'll have to get you in there.
Come for the strombolis. I love that.
Speaking of get you in there, did you happen to get in any viewings of anything you wanted to share with the listeners? How was that? Was that okay?
That was a great segue, as a matter of fact. I did watch something. I watched something called His and Hers. It's a new Netflix limited series starring Jon Bernthal and Tessa Thompson. It's just a 6-episode series, and I'm about halfway through it, and I'm liking it. So I'm decided it was safe to talk about today. It's a murder mystery police procedural type of thing, and it's one of those where the protagonists and victims and suspects all have these complex family situations and complicated relationships with each other in a small town type of scenario, lots of local regional color, which when I describe it sounds a lot like other series that we like Inglesby's shows, Mayor of Easttown, Task. But in comparison, His and Hers is not that bleak. It's not that hard-hitting as Mayor. Has more of a juicy, salacious style to the crimes and the intrigue. Both the protagonists, who are played really enjoyably by Bernthal and by Tessa Thompson, they do all this suspicious stuff, and so throughout you're thinking they're at least morally gray, if not willing to believe that they might have outright capable of doing terrible things, which makes it all pretty light and fun. It's like reading a slightly trashy thriller novel you might pick up off an airport newsstand. But apparently that's exactly what His and Hers was adapted from, so they seem to be doing a good job.
I know you said it has a lot of local flair. Where is it set again?
It's set in a suburb outside of Atlanta.
Okay. Watching the trailers and seeing the description, it reminded me of that other Netflix show. I can't remember if I brought it for show and tell, but I think I might have. The Beast Beast in Me, the Claire Danes and Matthew Rhys one, which was also like she's a writer investigating this real estate magnate who's been accused of murder. Not accused, he's suspected. He's like a Robert Durst type character, let's say. People keep going missing around him. So when I saw His and Hers, I was very intrigued. I have to admit that the reviews pushed me away from jumping right into it. They were pretty, let's say, mixed to be respectful. But I love Tessa Thompson. I love Jon Bernthal. So I'm totally willing to give it a shot based on your recommendation. Jon Bernthal, is he playing like a loud, aggressive dude who's always like, let me tell you something, man? Is he doing
He's playing a very Bernthal detective, cocksure, a lot of attitude, but then like a soft side where he's like really caring to his sister's little daughter. So it's got all the stuff. Bernthal's doing his Bernthal shit, which he's so good at. And I think anybody lesser than him doing a version of that same sort of stereotypical character might be too much. It might be like, oh, this is just a corny rehash. But with him, it's like, just do your thing, man. I like to see it.
Yeah, if you watch interviews with him, I don't think he's playing much of a character in most of his. That's just how he is.
He embodies that.
Yeah, you either like it or you don't. And I think we both do. So I'll definitely check it out.
How about you? Did you watch something good?
I did. Also, a police procedural mystery. It's a brand new movie. As we're recording this, it just dropped today on Netflix. And it's called The Rip. It is a little dirtbag crime thriller. One of my favorite genres of movie, set in and around Miami-Dade. And it's got quite a cast. I was shocked to see that the budget was $100 million, considering it takes place mostly in one location. But then when you hear the names involved, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Kyle Chandler, my dude, that's one of my guys for sure. Stephen Yeun, our boy, we'll be talking about him more.
Love Yeun.
And the front runner, I would say right now, for Best Supporting Actress, Teyana Taylor.
Wow.
She pops up in there. Sasha Calle is not an actor that I knew very well, but I was really impressed with her performance. If you like intrigue and dirty cops going up against cartels and such, which I do, there's a lot worse ways to spend 2 hours. The way I described it is like everyone involved is overqualified for this movie, but that kind of elevates the whole experience to make it more enjoyable. Directed by Joe Carnahan, a director that I'm mixed on. Like I didn't love Smokin' Aces or The A-Team, but then I go back to Narc with Jason Patric and Ray Liotta is an all-time favorite of mine.
Oh, really? Okay.
I knew he had it in him to put in a more serious, grimy cop drama, which is what this is. Cool. I mean, there's some great twists. It's plotted really well. It hides its central mystery from you pretty well. And then when it climaxes, it's very enjoyable. That's a weird way to say that. But yeah, I just watched it this morning, so it's still fresh in my mind. And I could see it being the kind of movie I come back to every couple of years when I'm just like, I don't know what to watch. It's got that vibe to it.
That sounds fun. Affleck, Damon together, two of America's sweethearts, and they're each other's sweethearts, which is also very cute. It'd be fun just to watch them in a high-spirited movie like that.
When was the last time they acted together? It's probably been a while, right?
What was the Ridley Scott movie about the legal battle between feudal lords?
Oh, the last duel. Yeah, we got to cover that one day.
Although they weren't co-leads. Affleck was in a smaller role in that, but they had a lot of fun in that.
He was so good in it, though. I think it's funny that there was this perception of them as a duo, that like Damon was the cultured, intelligent one and Affleck was like a meathead jock guy. But now 30 years down the line from Good Will Hunting, I think that perception has shifted somewhat, because I feel like every time Damon's interviewed, he's saying something stupid. And Affleck's kind of cultivated this world-weary Boston dad persona for himself that's very, I don't know, like I just have a lot of affection towards him.
It's fun. It's the fun part of movie stars when they're likable enough, but also have, I mean, especially with Affleck, lots of personal foibles and drama that gets aired in public, but none of it's too off-putting, so you can kind of just enjoy the whole ride.
Yeah, it's all like, what the fuck's that tattoo on his back? He got a whole dragon? It's never like he drove drunk and killed somebody or something.
Yes.
So it's just a step below being concerning, where you're just like, oh, I hope he's all right.
Yeah.
With all those millions of dollars. But The Rip, worth a rip. Give it a rip. Let it rip.
I'll let it rip.
Which brings us to today's topic, Mickey 17 from Bong Joon Ho. And this is his first movie since his Oscar-winning turn with Parasite. So let me ask you, what did you know about this movie coming into this episode? Did you watch it before? What'd you think of it then? What'd you think of it now?
I was excited for this when it first came to streaming. And if you recall, I brought it to the show for Show and Tell. That was back in April on our Fantastic Four episode. I checked what I wrote down about it at the time, and I was praising it for the performances and just for the fact that it was a big concept original sci-fi, which is, of course, one of our hobby horses. We always champion those movies when they get made.
Absolutely.
And so this was a big revisit for me. It had been a little bit of time. And on revisiting it, I still like it. And I still think that it's flawed in some little ways that kind of drag it down. It's got this wonderful human story at its core, which is what I think a sci-fi movie like this needs in order to transcend the genre stuff. Like you'll always get some genre fans coming out to check out a movie with a cool concept and that has cool looking stuff in it. But to get to a wider audience, it's got to have a human story. And this movie like has that, but it's just a little bit shaggy as a movie. It's overstuffed. Some of the characters don't really work all that well, and they create friction rather than fuel for the story. So I wish it had been better received and would lead to more movies like it, but I also get why it's not everybody's favorite.
Yeah, I mean, watching it 3 times times now in the span of just a few months. It doesn't hold up as well on rewatches for me as most of the movies we cover. I find something about it unpleasant. Not that it's bad or poorly made or poorly acted. I think everybody's at the top of their game in this movie. I just don't necessarily like their game, if that makes sense. And we'll get into more specific examples when we start talking about the story and I can be more granular. But there is a lot to like here. It's funny to think that a movie this good is probably my least favorite movie we're covering this month. Not probably, it is my least favorite movie we're covering this month, which just goes to show that we made a concerted effort to cover movies that we were pretty enthusiastic about.
Yeah, it's a matter of perspective because there could easily be other months or even 6-month stretches where this same movie would be your favorite one.
Yeah, just look at last January. What did we cover? Borderlands, Joker, Folie à Deux,
Megalopolis.
All movies we were pretty mixed to very down on, but there was just a lot of good movies that didn't quite catch on at the box office this year. So it just feels a little bit like an also ran in that circumstance.
Yeah, super admirable. There's a lot of things, and we'll talk to them when we get into the details. A lot of things that are really cool. The sci-fi stuff is good. The conceptual stuff is good. The execution of a lot of it's really good. And the ambition of the story and the characters, I'm totally on board with. It's more like the execution of certain parts of the story and some of the characters that grated on me.
Exactly. I think we're on the same page about that. Should we get into how this movie got made?
Yeah, let's hear how this thing happened.
All right. Mickey 17 arrived on March 7th, 2025 as one of the most anticipated original science fiction films in years. It marked Bong Joon Ho's return to filmmaking after Parasite, a movie that swept the Oscars and turned him into one of the few directors whose name alone could sell a ticket in both art house theaters and multiplexes. Warner Brothers clearly believed they had something special, backing the film with a substantial production budget of $118 million. What they got instead was another reminder of how unforgiving the theatrical market has become for ambitious, director-driven science fiction. The film is based on Edward Ashton's 2022 novel, Mickey 7.
Well, this one's 10 louder, isn't it?
A high-concept story about a disposable worker sent on a colonial mission where death is routine and identity is negotiable. Bong was drawn to the premise, but not especially interested in fidelity. He rewrote the story in 2021, using an early draft of the book, reshaping Mickey into a more passive and confused figure and leaning hard into the existential horror of being replaceable. He has been clear that the characters were not intended as allegories for real-world politicians, despite the temptation to read them that way.
Whatever you say, Bong.
The setting, the frozen planet Niflheim, pulls directly from Norse mythology, a realm associated with cold, obscurity, and unremarkable deaths. It seemed a fitting choice for a story about lives that end not with heroism, but with administrative indifference.
Not to mention audience indifference.
Production took place at Warner Brothers Studio Leavesden beginning in August 2022 and wrapped by the end of the year, though post-production stretched well into 2023. Creature designs were handled by Bong and longtime collaborator Jang Hee-chul, continuing a partnership that goes back to Bong's 2006 sci-fi film, The Host. From a craft perspective, the film was never the issue. The problems came later. Mickey 17 became a quiet casualty of internal studio tension. Its release was delayed repeatedly, first due to the SAG-AFTRA strike and later because of disagreements over the final cut. The film sat on the shelf for nearly a year as Warner Brothers debated how commercially viable Bong's preferred version actually was. In the end, Bong won. The theatrical release reflects his final cut, for better or worse. The victory did not translate into box office success, however. The film opened to $19 million domestically, in line with other original sci-fi movies like Jupiter Ascending, Ad Astra, and The Creator. What do all these movies have in common? Mickey's opening was considered respectable for original science fiction, but disastrous relative to its budget. The second weekend drop was steep at 61%, and by week 3 it was already sliding out of contention. It eventually grossed about $46 million in North America and $86 million internationally, finishing with a worldwide total just north of $130 million. With the marketing budget included, Warner Brothers was believed to have spent close to $200 million on the film. Break-even estimates ranged from $240 million to $300 million. Instead, the studio was left staring at a loss of about $80 million. Critics were largely positive. The film holds a 78% Rotten Tomatoes score, with praise aimed at its narrative ideas, performances, and willingness to be strange. Audiences, however, were far less enthusiastic. The movie's deliberate pacing, bleak humor, and philosophical detours made it a hard sell in a marketplace increasingly dominated by brands, sequels, and spectacle.
Don't feel bad. I'm constantly dominated by brands, sequels, and spectacle.
In many ways, Mickey 17 feels like a film out of time. It's expensive but not flashy, cerebral but not comforting, and driven by a filmmaker uninterested in sanding down its sharper edges. A decade earlier, it might have been positioned as a bold genre event, but in 2025, it became another prestige project that proved critical respect does not pay off a 9-figure budget. For Bong Joon Ho, the film did little to damage his reputation, but it did reinforce an industry reality that even Oscar winners are no longer guaranteed theatrical safety.
I just hope he doesn't have to flee the planet.
For Warner Brothers, it was another reminder that original science fiction at blockbuster scale remains one of the riskiest bets in Hollywood. Mickey 17 may find a longer life on home media and streaming, where its themes and oddities can be appreciated without the pressure of opening weekend expectations. In theaters, though, it was just another disposable version that didn't survive long enough to matter.
I think you're hinting at something there that resonates with me, that Bong's vision on this, it's very humanistic for something that's hard sci-fi with actual space creatures and space travel and lots of cool detail about its world building. It's got this lighthearted mood that back in April when I was talking about it, the thing that came to mind was Wes Anderson. Like the characters are kind of goofy, the music, the score lends to that feeling of being old-timey and zany in parts. And somehow I can deal with all those things coming together, but I think your hard sci-fi fans want something that's cool, that's literally, meets more of the genre conventions and not something that's both hard sci-fi and quirky. It seems hard to find an audience that really meets in the middle on those things.
Yeah, I think if you watched like Okja, which is another kind of hard sci-fi with quirks Bong movie, you might be better equipped to get on the level with this film, but it does feel, and it could also be a cultural thing, because even The Host, going back as far as 2006, like that's a pretty tried and true kaiju movie, but it's also zany as hell. I think there might just be a disconnect there between American audiences and what they expect.
Yeah, I was trying to think about that because I didn't get through Okja when I tried it back when it came out, but I was a big fan of The Host. But The Host, I think somehow is easier to swallow because somehow family comedy plus monster movie is an easier fit versus sci-fi space colonization movie plus wacky character ensemble comedy, like Baroque weird characters. They get weirder as you go, and we'll get to the weirdest ones are the ones that we like the least, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like, on paper, it's some of the same mix, but it's like a different recipe, and the Host recipe works great, and this recipe is an acquired taste.
And not to say that I would want the tone to change, because I think you're getting a lot of mileage out of Robert Pattinson by having him play this kind of dorky simpleton for the majority of the movie. He's really good in this. Yeah. He's really good in everything. We're going to have to talk more about him in depth. But Bong has made more gritty, straightforward kind of sci-fi with stuff like Snowpiercer. It was more of an action movie than a sci-fi movie, or post-apocalyptic, I guess you would say. So he has it in him to do a more like straight-faced version of that type of story. But this definitely feels like a Bong movie in a way that Snowpiercer necessarily didn't to me.
I love that he's letting his freak flag fly, basically. Like, he's interested in whimsical shit, and he's also interested in sci-fi. And he's like, I can put those things together in my movie. And fuck yeah, keep doing that, because we love that creative original sci-fi.
I mean, he made his little Oscar statues kiss. Remember?
Yes, now that you say that.
It was a big thing. We turned it into a meme. And like, I was a fan for life after seeing it. I was already a fan. I was able to catch Parasite in theaters. That was pretty cool. But yeah, we love Bong.
Yeah.
And also Bongs.
Yeah.
I'm in favor, but I have my qualms with this movie, and we're going to have to get into them. So why don't we start maybe going over the story, and we can get into some of the specifics of the plot.
Here we go. The year is 2050, and Mickey Barnes is in trouble. Mickey, played by Robert Pattinson, and his best friend Timo, played by Stephen Yeun, recently borrowed money from notorious loan shark Darius Blank. Then, Timo's terrible business idea promptly failed, leaving them broke. In a desperate effort to avoid being murdered, they both sign up to leave Earth on a colonization mission to the planet Niflheim. The smarmy Timo finagles himself a cushy job as a pilot, while humble Mickey is forced to volunteer for the worst job on the ship, as the mission's lone expendable. Human cloning is banned on Earth, but off-planet you're allowed to pick one expendable, make him do every dangerous, dirty job, and then if and when he dies, you simply clone a new copy. But never more than one at a time. Multiples are strictly forbidden. The Niflheim colony mission is led by failed politician Kenneth Marshall, played by Mark Ruffalo, a pompous blowhard with grandiose delusions of his own greatness, and his equally obnoxious wife Ylfa, played by Toni Collette. The bright spot in Mickey's grueling 4-year journey is that he quickly meets a security agent named Nasha, played by Naomi Ackie, and the two fall deeply into a romantic relationship. Nasha is both tough and caring. She protects Mickey from being bullied and comforts him as the medical department conducts experiments which kill Mickey in new and painful ways. Each time, Mickey's memories are backed up onto a memory brick so that when they print a new copy of his body, he comes back pretty much the same. After 4 years of hard work and meager rations, Mickey number 17 and the rest of the colony arrive on the snow-covered planet of Niflheim. On a scouting expedition, Mickey 17 falls into an ice crevasse where he's surrounded by the planet's alien creatures, nicknamed Creepers. Timo checks on Mickey, but attempting a rescue seems risky and inconvenient, so he leaves Mickey there to die. However, even as he's being reported dead, the creepers mysteriously take a liking to Mickey. Under the leadership of a huge matriarchal creeper, a bunch of aliens rescue Mickey and bring him back to the surface safely. But as Mickey returns unnoticed to his cabin aboard the ship, he makes a shocking discovery. Sleeping in Mickey 17's bed is Mickey 18.
First qualm, let's get it out of the way here. I take offense to the fact that you call Timo's business idea terrible. I, for one, enjoy a macaron. I think they're delicious and delightful, and they're also difficult to bake yourself. So I would never try to make them at home. I would go to a store to buy them.
That makes sense. I've admired them from afar. I can't actually say that I know what a macaron tastes like. Like, I know that they were like a trendy pastry trend and people were bringing them home in fancy paper bags from various little bakeries.
Now Costco just sells like a whole 40 box of them for $20. So usually around the holidays, we get a bunch.
That's probably what ruined Mickey and Timo's business. That was like, if you can get them cheap from Costco, they're not going to go to their store.
So it's basically a sandwich cookie. The sandwiches are flavored, but then also there's a cream or a jelly in between that is also flavored, and that gives it its flavor. My favorite is lemon, but they have all different types. Anything you can imagine, really.
Yeah, I know they come in those cute, bright pastel citrus colors and stuff. Yeah. I imagine that they taste like limes and tangerines and stuff.
Pistachios, a pot flavor. Yeah, they're great.
Oh, okay.
Strawberry. I'm just naming flavors now.
They do sound good. Should we just pause the podcast and go get some macarons?
I had some in my fridge up until a week ago. They're gone now. I would eat one on mic if I had one to give my immediate review. Maybe I'll get some before next episode and we can have a little segue into a macaron corner.
Macaron corner sounds really good, as long as we don't get chopped up by a vindictive loan shark.
He did seem to really enjoy killing people. He seemed like a mean guy.
The upshot was that, like, he had plenty of money. He wasn't actually worried about losing the money. He just liked killing people. So he liked to lend money to people with bad ideas.
It's like he thought the people that borrowed money from him were expendable.
The expendable concept here is great. It's actually doing the heavy, thinky part of your conceptual sci-fi. It's a metaphor for the exploitation of the worker. This worker is literally exploited to death and then just reproduced. And Bong tries to explore it. Like, Mickey's experience with having to die and being abused in this way is very visceral, and you feel that, and it conveys a nice message. There's a secondary part where everyone's asking Mickey, what's it like to die? And I never figured out what I was supposed to take from the fact that everyone's callous with him and just crudely curious and wants him to tell them about death.
The movie does seem to be setting us up for when Kai asks in a much more empathetic and layered way, because she just lost somebody very close to her. So she's more asking to know, what did they go through when they died, so I can know how it felt, which probably isn't the healthiest way to approach the subject. Best not to think about that, I would imagine.
But it is, I get your point. That ask was much more emotionally loaded and interesting.
Yeah, so I do agree with your question there about what is that really trying to tell us about. It could just be that people just stopped caring about Mickey and his feelings and what he's going through and are more just treating him, even when he's still alive, as if they don't have to consider how things affect him.
That's a good point. It works to help establish that he's been dehumanized. He's just a curiosity and not really thought of as a person.
Except when it comes to Nasha, who is absolutely madly in love with Mickey, and the movie never really spells out why.
It's a good point. They have a moment that's, you can feel the romantic tension when they meet, their eyes lock, and they both feel the same way about listening to the mission leader expound and get praise from his devoted followers, and they're definitely not that, so they connect. So it's plausible as a romance. It doesn't feel like totally fake and forced, and the actors' chemistry is good, but Mickey is a real sad sack. Like, he doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities except for his utter gentleness, and I feel like her role was just to show us that somebody of different qualities, somebody who's tough and strong, competent and confident, can find something to love in Mickey, even if we don't necessarily see what that is.
It was very well said.
Thank you.
Good job.
I worked on that.
Yeah. Did you?
But let's talk about the setup. So we talked about the macaron business, the loan shark. This takes up a lot of the movie in just the setup of the premise, which I appreciated because Bong's attention to the world building is great. There's all these cool sci-fi touches. Tough guy enforcers roll these metallic balls that pop up and turn into shackles and capture Mickey and Timo. There's this crazy sandstorm that appears outside the sign-up facility while Mickey's trying to sign up to get onto the space mission that just hints at the fact that the Earth is being destroyed by climate change. But it's a really cool special effect that's done as a little throwaway shot in the background. There's a lot of really cool sci-fi world building, and it's great, but it's a long movie, and that's 30. Yeah. It's 35 minutes before that title card. And for me, I'm like, oh, this is fun stuff. Show me more of the fun sci-fi world that we're living in. And then I'm like, looking at my watch, like, there was a lot of movie left. And we didn't get very far.
I'm very torn for that same reason, because it does a lot of really good show don't tell details about the world and why an expedition of this sort might be necessary. And I do want to spend more time there, but the movie's got to get going. And I fully admit, like, I was checking my watch quite a bit during the later parts of this movie. And I think if the setup was any shorter, I feel like the pacing issues in the back half of the movie would have been even more noticeable, because you really are spending time in one location, which is this ship.
Yeah.
And it's not very visually interesting because it's gray and drab and depressing, and the food is ugly. Everything's ugly except the people, which are almost all to a person exceedingly beautiful.
Sure.
But so I did appreciate that we got a reprieve in the beginning from just cutting to the ship and here's why I'm on the ship and what I do. It does add something to it, but do 90-minute movies exist anymore?
I wish they did.
There's no movie we're covering this month that's less than 2 hours.
It makes it extra grueling. I mean, I'm constantly questioning myself. I'm like, am I just a weak attention span stunted product of the 21st century? Like, should we just enjoy a good 2-hour, 15-minute movie and not complain?
It's so funny, though, because as our attention spans are getting much worse due to the internet and the way the algorithm targets us, like movies seem to be getting longer at the same time. It's like we're moving in opposite directions from each other in terms of what we want. And most of these movies that are like 2.5 hours are my favorite movies. I love Eddington. I loved Marty Supreme. And when I see a movie that's long, I have a feeling that it's going to be more weighty. You know, it's going to have more to say. It's not a story that can be rushed out. So I go into it with maybe enhanced expectations, but also a little bit of it is, you better not waste my time if you're going to take up this much of it.
I wonder if artists are feeling the same thing. It just the general desperation in society, like every artistic endeavor might be my last, so I might as well just
put every idea I have.
It could be a little bit of that. Like no one thinks movies should be quick, clean little entertainments, like cute products in a tidy little box that you can just munch down. It's like everything better matter. If you're going to make it, you better make it count, which is great for the art of it. But like you said, it works against our natural instincts to switch our attention focus every 5 minutes.
Even The Rip was an hour and 58 minutes for a dirtbag crime movie that takes place largely in one location. It's not making a judgment one way or another, but it's noticeable.
That's the equivalent of the 92-minute movie today.
Yeah, it's under 2, just barely. And I'm sure that was like a Netflix note, like you got to make it less than 2 hours.
You're probably right. Another thing that fills up this movie is not just the sci-fi world building, but Mickey's world building, which is great. His backstory is quite interesting, and he's compelled to take this job, not for the really simplistic reason of, oh, he's just a dodo with no job skills, so he's got to offer himself up to being expendable. That's what sets him up for it. But what seals the deal is the lady that comes to interview him once he volunteers has all this sense memory that reminds him of his mother, which is like part of his key backstory, that he holds himself responsible for his mother's death, who died in a car crash when he was little. And it got wild there. Like he's sniffing the testing lady's hair and going into these dreamy reveries and like losing himself.
And then just weeping when all those memories of his mother's death. Like that was really heartbreaking stuff from Pattinson. I thought that was, the movie had been pretty silly up to that point, and that was the first indication that it had a little bit more on its mind.
Yeah, it gets heavy there because they give him this injection to make all his memories flood back so they can encode them onto the brick for the first time and get a really complete set of memories. And so that causes him to relive his mom's death, and he loses it. And then the lady offers him a gun and says, your final test is to shoot yourself in the head to prove that you're willing to be an expendable. And it's like, fuck, this shit just got heavy.
Yeah, she's a real weirdo.
She's spooky.
What was the button in the car? Did he hit the NOS? Is it an ejector seat? It's just a red button.
I feel like old cars used to have buttons like that. It might be for like turning off the airbag in the front passenger seat, or it might have been for nothing. I mean, eventually Mickey 18 tells him that button didn't do shit and he was not responsible for his mom's death. But I think that's the point, is it's just like a button that you press as a kid that it probably didn't even look like that, right? That was a child's memory.
Yeah.
He probably pressed the cigarette lighter or something and thought that he killed his mom by doing that.
Yeah, Mickey 18 does bring a different perspective to everything. Let's talk about Pattinson as Mickey 17 primarily. He's very childlike, very innocent. Can you imagine if you were just like a huge fan of the Twilight movies and then you slipped into a coma and you're like, I want to see what my favorite actor from my teenage years is up to now, and you put on Mickey 17.
And he's going, I'm such a loser. He talks funny. He's
just getting murdered repeatedly in all these fucked up ways.
He's this comically sad sack loser getting experimented on and dying of nerve gas and alien viruses. And he plays it so weird and sappy and funny, but because he's so good, he makes it work, even though it shouldn't work. That character's like too cartoonish and dumb, but it's still endearing because of Pattinson.
Now, let me ask you this. The movie was rated R, which of course is always going to have an impact on your commercial aspirations. You're going to likely earn less than you would at PG-13, but the movie's really only rated R because we have to see Mickey die gruesomely like 15 times.
Yeah.
Did that add a lot to the movie for you, or do you think they should have dialed that back a little bit and go for a PG-13?
It's risky. I feel like it could undercut its message if they sanitized the deaths deaths. If it's just a matter of how much blood is on screen, that's probably something you could still have a death that was impactful without showing him vomiting up blood or whatever.
I really enjoyed some of those scenes, like when his hand gets knocked off when he's outside the spacecraft. And I was like, oh shit. All these very buttoned up scientists are just kind of losing it. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think the harshness and that contrast between the cavalier way they treat him and the real awful things that are happening to him is effective. That's part of the big message of the movie, of how badly he's being treated. So I like that choice.
See, I was hoping you would say the opposite so that I could make the argument you just made.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But you fucked me up, Ian, by being too wise.
It's a curse.
I know. All right, moving on then.
Okay.
Since I can't make my point, Ian made it for me.
Happy to help.
Let's talk about Naomi Ackie. Now, are you familiar with her? Did you like her as an actor before this, or was this your first real exposure?
She was somebody that I felt like I had seen her face, but I couldn't tell you where. But I thought she was great in this. She's very compelling.
I brought her for a show and tell after I watched Blink Twice at some point last year. She was the star of that movie with Channing Tatum, and she was really good in that, but relatively new to her. I think she's got a bright future if the world doesn't end.
Let's hope for the best for us and for her.
Another thing, an off-world or off-ship storyline that we get was the Alan Manikova interlude about multiples, which was bizarre, but I really enjoyed it, where it gives us the backstory on multiples and why they're so looked down upon.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too, because it would be really easy in a sci-fi movie. You have this concept, it's cloning, but they don't want it on Earth, and they especially don't want you to make multiple copies of the same person. And you could go, oh yeah, it's because everyone agreed that it was morally wrong to do so. But no, it's got a very realistic explanation, was that like one of the guys who invented the cloning was a psychopath. He cloned several copies of himself so that he could get away with murdering homeless people.
Because he had alibis for every one of them.
Yeah. And so it's a bunch of extra details, a little 4-minute detour just to explain the concept of multiples are banned, which you could have probably said in 2 sentences. But it's great color and it feels really real. Like, oh, that's what would happen to us. That's why something like that would happen.
Yeah, it's like a short film in and of itself because it has like multiple twists within itself where they're like,
yeah,
the cops knew what he was up to, so they brought 2 pairs of handcuffs, but then it turns out there was like 4 more. It's really cool stuff.
And that is very Wes Anderson, to have a little diversion where you tell a little side story and something whimsically poignant happens.
This one wasn't as whimsical as I would expect because he is murdering homeless people.
It's dark, but it still has some humor to it.
Absolutely.
In a dark way.
It's just not the Wes Anderson type of humor.
No, it's a little
hedged for
pointed
him.
in its own direction, but that's like a technique that he definitely uses.
Yeah. All right. Was there anything else from the first act we want to go over? Should I move on to the second?
Well, yeah, let's rocket forward into the next act.
Hey. Compared to the kind and gentle Mickey 17, Mickey 18 is a real asshole. When 18 first meets 17, he tries to kill his clone, knowing that if they're caught and exposed as multiples, they'll both be permanently deleted. But 18's fight with 17 is interrupted by the appearance of Timo, who Mickey 18 tries to kill for putting him in this situation in the first place. Then 18's fight with Timo is interrupted by the appearance of Nasha. Mickey 18 and Nasha go back to their cabin together, and Mickey 17 slips out from hiding to follow them, but he's interrupted by an invitation to be the guest of honor at an elegant feast with Kenneth and Yilfa Marshall. At the dinner, Mickey can't help stuffing his face on the food they serve him, but Mickey's entree turns out to be an experimental lab-grown meat substitute that makes him incredibly sick. Marshall is ready to put Mickey down with a bullet to the head, but instead, the beautiful security agent Kai, another guest at the dinner, volunteers to take Mickey back to her cabin to nurse him back to health. But when Kai gets close, Mickey rejects her advances and flees back to Nasha's cabin. Mickey 18 has already told Nasha that 17 is still alive, and she negotiates a truce between the 2 Mickeys. She's actually turned on at the idea of having both Mickeys in bed at once. But Mickey 18 is furious at learning how 17 was mistreated at the dinner and runs off to try to murder Kenneth Marshall. Marshall is giving a public speech where he's dedicating a huge obsidian boulder to be made into a plaque. But when they cut into the stone, 2 baby creepers pop out. Chaos erupts as the crowd panics. Mickey 17 captures one of the baby creepers safely, but after the other little creeper jumps on Marshall's head, he orders Kai and the other security agents to shoot it dead. Meanwhile, Nasha tackles Mickey 18 and stops him from assassinating Marshall. When the dust clears, Marshall sees that they are now multiples and has Nasha and both Mickeys arrested.
I could feel already, as we're trying to communicate plot of what happens in this act, the plot has already started to take on water. It's a point where so much happens, so much of it is based on things that really need to be explained. Like, why is that guy there and doing that thing? And I guess we'll get into the details, but this is where the movie starts to bog down and stuff where you feel like it's working too hard to get through its plot points.
Yeah, and a lot of that doesn't really become apparent until the movie's over and you realize a lot of this setup was sloppy or not resolved properly by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So taking on water is a good description for it because the movie is just bogging itself down with a lot of little details that, again, like Bong seems really interested with the texture of the world and not just just driving the plot forward, which is great. But this is a movie where not that much really happens, but you end up just spending a lot of time in between set pieces.
It's a plot where like they made all the plot points connect. It's not a movie where you go, oh, that didn't make sense. And you see why everybody did everything. But a lot of the times they did that last thing to get their character into the next scene and ready to do the really important thing. It starts to feel laborious.
And I'll tell you what's extra laborious is spending time with the marshals.
Yes, that's the other thing that starts to bog you down.
Starts to bong you down. No, I was trying to explain to you my issue with the marshals. And the best way I could explain it is just that you don't love to hate them. You just hate them.
Yeah.
Like they're so despicable and obnoxious. And maybe it's just like the state of the world right now and the kind of people we're dealing with in the real world that just makes me have a very small amount of bandwidth to give these type of characters.
Yeah, that could be it. And there's, like you said, the director was like, no, that's not supposed to be Donald Trump. But
it is, though.
Maybe Mark Ruffalo didn't get the message because he's doing a Trump. I mean, it's unique, but
his veneers are fucking insane. I kept waiting for them to just pop out of his mouth.
Yeah, they're hard to look at. And his attitude, yeah, he's so over the top. And I like Mark Ruffalo having fun. I really loved it in Poor Things, where he played another sort of over the top, dramatic, ridiculous character.
Also an asshole.
Yeah, but that one was fun. I really loved that character. And this character, like you said, he wears out his welcome really fast. And you're just like, you know that he's going to get his comeuppance, and that's why you have to tolerate the bad guy. But it's not very fun. It's too sweaty. And Toni Collette's another fantastic actor.
Oh, yeah, one of my faves.
Who's just like struggling. She's working really hard, and she can, when those actors, Ruffalo and Collette, when they churn their engines, man, they kick up a lot of water. Like the water is just choppy as hell in this movie. And so you're like getting splashed and doused with what they're kicking up, but they're working too hard because the characters don't always make sense. And it's like, I wish they would have had an easier path through this movie.
Yeah, Yilfa specifically has a subplot where she's trying to devise like a really excellent sauce. She's a saucier, this is the term we would use. And what?
Yeah.
Why?
It comes to a head in the end, but you're like, well, that didn't make sense from the start. Like, I get that she's a gourmand and she loves cooking and they're very hedonistic. And it's part of the contrast of the haves and the have-nots on this mission is that like everyone else is starving and eating these shitty rations that look like worse prison food. And the two of them live in their opulent chambers and they're eating like kings and queens. But her obsession with sauce is necessary to make one of the key plot points work in the third act. But it literally just doesn't make sense on screen. And so to have these actors like going, I love sauce, and like really trying to sell you on that. And you're like, I don't buy it. You're a great actor. And I can't go with you on that.
That's not how writing works. You can't just be like, you're obsessed with the powder that comes with Kraft macaroni and cheese. That's your favorite thing in the world. Your character is obsessed with it. And you can't just say that to somebody and be like, okay, I get it. You have to explain it. If it's a really out there hang up and obsession that they have, you have to do a little more work, I think, to color in the lines.
Yeah, don't make the actor do the work just through their insistence. You have to make the script do the work to set it up, which that seems to be what's missing.
And I know that this was filmed before this happened, but the scene where 18 takes a shot at Kenneth Marshall and grazes him is pretty close to a real world incident involving a world leader that Ruffalo is trying very hard to emulate here.
Yeah, that was freaky. We keep talking about directors with prescience to depict the future in their movies, and that was a creepy one.
A lot of that going on this month, yeah. But it turns out it's just movies about terrible tragedies are just easier to make. There's so much bad shit happening in the world at any given day. You're likely to stumble into one when you're making your movie.
You're inevitably overlapping some real world tragedy no matter what you put on screen.
If you're making a movie that has a tragedy in it, it's probably happening somewhere right now. It
probably is.
And let's talk about 18 a little bit before we skip over this characterization, because really good performance by Pattinson here to make Mickey 17. The first time I was watching this movie, I was like, I don't know that I'd be able to spend a whole movie rooting for this guy. He's almost too inept. And I didn't spend a lot of time watching the trailers. I wasn't aware of the multiples angle, although maybe I should have been. And then when 18 comes out, they really does feel like two halves of one whole. Like if you put these guys together, they'd be a relatively competent person. And that's a really difficult thing to do as an actor, I would imagine, because they have to feel like they come from the same whole, but you have to differentiate them just enough where you know exactly who's on screen. You made a good point. Even on the poster, you just know who's who by looking at them.
Yeah, I think that's some great work by Pattinson, that he just adopted a whole different energy. And every time the camera pans around and both of them are on screen, you don't spend any time wondering which one is which. You just always know. And it's like, I've known twins that are harder to tell apart than the literal two Robert Pattinsons that are on screen at the same time, because this guy, he found something and he just really made it work.
And there's also none of the awkwardness of clearly trying to do camera trickery to make it look like these guys are both on screen at the same time, or green screen stuff to like that always looks a little weird. Whatever they did to have these guys occupy the same space worked really well and felt seamless.
Yeah, that looks good. Everything looks good in this movie. We certainly don't have complaints about the creatures, the sci-fi stuff, the two Pattinsons. All that is handled really well.
And just Scumbag Pattinson is my favorite Pattinson. I'm a big Good Time fan, which was his movie with the Safdie brothers from like the late 10s. And I
keep meaning to watch that. I have not seen it.
Oh, you got to check it out. It's very stressful. I'll say it's not an easy watch.
I think that's what's kept me away.
In the same way that all Safdie movies are. You did see Uncut Gems though, right?
Yeah, once I saw Uncut Gems, I was scarred. I'm like, oh shit, I don't know if I can do another Safdie.
Marty Supreme's not as bad as that in terms of like the uncomfortableness.
Okay, that's good to know.
But Good Time's right up there.
Ooh, okay. But I do, I love our Pat. I'm an our Pat and stan.
You got to check it out then. So we've mentioned her in the synopsis. We got to talk about Kai a little bit. Anna Maria Bartolome plays this security agent who's respectfully, but also it matters to the plot. So I have to say it, just very beautiful.
Yes.
She's kind of set up as a love triangle with Nasha and Mickey. She's also set up as maybe an obstacle because she discovers the multiples and seems like she's going to run and tell. There's a lot that they seem to be building towards with this character that, spoiler alert, never kind of happens.
Yeah, I think you accurately identified the two main possible roles that she plays. But my problem is she switches in and out of those motivations so much, and frequently multiple times in the same scene, she has to pivot and go, oh, I'm going to tell on you, but I would never tell on you, but I would. And she's like grieving for her girlfriend was killed. She had this like serious girlfriend that was killed on the mission with Mickey, who she's convincingly grieving for, especially the way the script is written. Mm-hmm. That part is not supposed to be fake.
No, we're never supposed to surmise that, yeah, she's faking her sorrow. It's very real.
Yeah, she's got the pictures of her up on her mirror in her cabin, but then she pivots instantly into, also, I've got the hots for Mickey, even though I'm literally broken up over my lost girlfriend, but I do want to seduce Mickey at the same time.
The same Mickey she just saw vomit violently all over the floor in the big feast that they had. What is it about him that women find? I texted you about this when I was watching, and I was like, so he's got Naomi Ackie and I don't know Kai's actress's name at the time. I just called her Kai. Like lusting after him. And I know he's Robert Pattinson.
But he's not in this movie. He's Mickey, a little dweeb. So it's like, that's not really explained by his irresistible magnetism. It's that she really has a thing for him. But also there's another motivation that flip-flops where some of the time she's the upstanding security agent who's very loyal to the boss, Marshall. But in that same scene, that dinner scene, I counted 3 different times where they have her call Marshall out and contradict him and challenge him, but then pivot back to being a loyal. As soon as he says something, she goes, no, I'm a good soldier kind of thing. And I'm like, unfortunately, I didn't think that Anna Maria Bartolome was up to the challenge of this script, which, to be fair, put her in a pretty tough place to play these flip-flops of motivation repeatedly within the same scene. So basically, it ended up where everything she said sounded insincere to me. And I'm like, this is just a character who's trying to trick everybody all the time. And I don't think that was Bong Joon Ho's intention with this character, but due to the script plus her skill level as an actor, it just made the character into a mess for me. And because she's sort of an add-on, she plays a big part in certain plot points, but there would have been other ways to get through this movie without her. Right. I was like, I wish just had less of her.
Yeah, it's a kind of a mirror of the issue we had with the character of Mel in Thunderbolts, but that was a little more subtle. Like the problems with Kai are much more noticeable on the first watch. And we shouldn't leave out that the reason she's invited to this dinner with the Marshalls is they're grooming her to be a birthing pod, essentially, for beautiful white babies. The movie is trying to say something about white supremacist ideology.
Yeah, it layers that in. Like, you're not making that up. There's no white supremacist ideology really on the surface until this one scene where Kenneth Marshall gets her alone and starts speaking, I guess, in a more unguarded way about, we're going to this white planet, which is ostensibly white because it's snow-covered, but you get what he means. And he's like, you have the genetic material that we want, and we want to churn out a lot of babies that look like you. And this character and the way he was leading this colony was odious enough that you didn't need to like layer a very specific white supremacy angle on top of it. Would you agree?
Yeah, only because, like you said, we're at the end of the second act by now, and it's just becoming a focal point of his platform at this time. He's got a lot of high-ranking people of color on the ship, so it kind of contradicts what he's saying in this dinner scene with Kai. Nasha is African-American. There's quite a few Asian characters on the ship in high-ranking positions, so it's not like he's only bringing white people with him, or if he's bringing people of color, you'd expect him to make them subservient in some way, but that's not really what's happening either.
Yeah, they never make him do that, so it leads to this weird inconsistency that you can't explain why things are the way they are.
I would argue that it's certainly hinted at only because when Mickey goes to sign up, or there's the news footage of him announcing this expedition, like you see what his followers, they're all wearing red hats, and you know, there's an inherent biases that will bring out of people. Sure. And so when I saw it, I was like, I get who this guy is supposed to be, and then you can make assumptions about the kind of people that would. And there are a few talking head interviews with people that are like, oh, we're going because we just love him and we trust him, and they all look and sound exactly like you'd expect.
Yeah, except for a few have British accents.
Yeah,
but there's no shortage of
British fascists.
British fascists.
Yeah, so like the movie's just, I kind of see the studio's point here with the edit of this movie maybe not being as polished as it could be. They didn't want to give final cut to Bong, but it's these threads do pop up and disappear and pop up again in these very inconsistent and distracting ways that maybe a more deft hand in the editing room could have smoothed out.
I agree. It's a movie that, like, it's got so much of his original creative vision in it, being the screenwriter and the director, that it feels hard to start killing those darlings. And there's a lot of darlings in the movie. But I think having a real Hollywood-style script polish to cut all the ragged edges off this thing and streamline it could have actually done wonders for it if it was done at a high level in a smart and wholesome way.
All right, are you ready to take us home?
All right, here we go. While the Mickeys and Nasha languish in their jail cells, they get a visit from Timo. Timo has received an ultimatum from the loan shark Darius Blank, who has secretly planted an enforcer aboard the mission with them. And so in order to satisfy Blank's thirst for bloody payback, Timo says he's got to dismember one of the Mickeys on camera. As they argue over which Mickey should sacrifice himself, they turn the tables on Timo. But just then, security agents interrupt the fight, and they're all taken alive to face Kenneth Marshall for judgment on the multiples problem. But Marshall is also dealing with an escalating situation on the planet outside. Sensing that their youngling is being held inside, thousands of creepers of all sizes have surrounded the mothership. First, Marshall erases Mickey's memory brick so that he can't be cloned again. Then he sends the two Mickeys outside on a perverse contest to cut the tails off young creepers so that the cooking enthusiast Ylfa can use them to prepare her special sauce. To make sure they comply, the Marshals strap the Mickeys with explosive vests, and then they watch them wade out into the snowstorm. But when they see Mickey 17 using a translator device to communicate with the creeper matriarch, Marshall decides he needs to be out there himself. He's going to film a dramatic final speech to the creepers just before he kills them all with a dose of nerve gas. Meanwhile, Mickey 17 has learned that the creepers are demanding the return of their baby, plus the exchange of one human life in return for the other creeper baby that was murdered. As Marshall heads out into the snow, Mickey 17 signals Nasha, who with the help of sympathetic fellow security agents, stages a coup aboard the ship. Nasha then gets hold of the baby and brings it out to Mickey 17, who returns it to his mother. Meanwhile, Mickey 18 has made a heroic decision. He chases down the commander's vehicle and jumps aboard, tackling Marshall. Making sure the mother creeper is watching, Mickey 18 sacrifices his own life by pressing the button on Marshall's detonator, taking the hated mission leader out with him as he explodes. 6 months later, it's springtime, and the colonization mission has taken great strides in the absence of the toxic leadership of the Marshals. Nasha has been elected to the supervisory committee, and together with her partner, Mickey Barnes, they proudly preside over the destruction of the human printing machine and the permanent abolition of cloning on Niflheim.
Why do you need tails to make sauce?
I mean,
it's not how sauce works. Sauce is a liquid.
It doesn't make a fucking lick of sense, man. I'm not going to defend that for a second. I hated that subplot. And her sauce isn't even a sauce. It's just a puree, right? Yeah. She doesn't do any cooking. She doesn't add any ingredients. She doesn't add cream or marsala and reduce it.
She's basically making smoothies.
Yeah, she just takes the tails, chops them into bits, puts them in a magic bullet blender and blends them, and then has other people taste it and go, isn't that a good sauce? And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you putting us through this? It's gross, and it's so gross that it's not realistic. So you're like, I've lost my ability to follow this character where she's taken us because she's acting weird.
Yeah, Ylfa, I think, is the least successful character in the movie, and it's a real shame because Toni Collette can bring the heat when she wants to, and she was trying her damnedest, but this movie did her no favors at all.
No, and when her husband dies in the explosion, she's watching on screen inside, and she gives just amazing Toni Collette reaction shot because it's so actually immediately painful and emotional and horrifying to see her face react to her husband. I'm like, oh, now I get why Hereditary is fucking scary as shit, because if she's reacting to horrible stuff in that movie the way she does in this movie, and it's a horror movie, I would just be shitting my pants to see that face on screen.
Yeah. I mean, you could.
I could shit my pants at will at any moment. Hereditary is available on streaming.
God, she's so good in Hereditary. I will die on the hill that she deserved at least an Oscar nomination for that performance. But so that's what we didn't like about this section. What we did like about this section is, as late in the game as it is, we're fleshing out some other members of the crew. We've got Stephen Park as the head of security. I thought he was really good in this section, the way he's quietly trying to undercut what the marshals are doing without drawing too much attention, and then finally striking when the moment is right.
Yeah.
And also Patsy Farron, who played Dorothy, gets a bigger role in this section. And she's always been a sympathetic member of the science team on the ship and has showed some empathy towards Mickey throughout. So we're inclined to like her.
Yeah.
But she also steps up big in this section. So these are characters that I enjoy spending time with, unlike the marshals.
Good to shout them out. They were definitely bright spots in the movie. And one of the characters that we've known from the beginning gets shittier and shittier.
Timo?
Stephen Yeun as Timo, who we love, but he really comes to a head when he literally wants to put a chainsaw through the neck of his best friend.
Yeah, you can draw a lot of conclusions about their friendship from the way he treats Mickey, which is that, like, this was my fall guy. I had all the influence I needed over him to get him to do whatever I wanted. And he's still trying to exert that. But Mickey 18 ain't about that.
No, it's the moment where Mickey 18 really becomes a good guy. There's like a truce between them for a while. And then you're like, oh, I see. Mickey needs this other side of himself.
Right.
And he starts to stand up for them both in the confrontation with Timo. And it's great. And Stephen Yeun, amazing actor that he is. I love his style. He gets a little more hyped up in this section. There's a scene where he's freaking out. But other than that, I love how laid back he is as an actor. His performances are always very direct, very clean, very stripped down. And yet they feel so real and they communicate very subtly. That's something that just delights me about his performances. And he's able to save this character who was literally seemed like the least redeemable piece of shit when he's chainsawing his friend. And then in the epilogue, he acquits himself in this trial where he had to fight off they retell the future story where he had to fight off Lank's henchmen on the ship and present a sympathetic case in front of the council. And you're like, oh, I guess he turned out all right. I still like him.
Yeah, I think Stephen Yeun has very expressive eyes. Yeah. He acts with his eyes a lot and he's really good at it. My only gripe with him, and this is not specific to this movie, this is overall, is that sometimes he just uses too small a slice.
Yeah, took too small a slice.
Now my stomach is fucked.
It actually was on, so we're referencing I Think You Should Leave season 1.
One of the first, maybe the first episode.
That could have been the very top of I Think You Should Leave. I'm not sure right now,
yeah.
But as stupid as it sounds, his performance as that character in that dumb Tim Robinson sketch was also amazing. It was like so real.
Oh, yeah.
And so grounded. And
I felt for him by the end when everyone's like leaving his house and being mean to him. I was like, this poor guy, he just used too small a slice one time.
Yeah.
It's just too harsh.
It's funny how that's what really clued me into what an astounding actor Stephen Yeun is.
Oh, see, I watched The Walking Dead, so I was clued into him. And he was, even when that show got bad, he was one of the bright spots for me.
Yeah, he was a character that everybody used to talk about as a favorite.
Yeah, he was definitely a fan favorite. Him and Maggie were a power couple. But then I don't think there's anyone left on that show that was from the beginning. The show's done now. But by the end, it's not a spoiler to say that he departed the show at one point, and the means of his departure, I think more than anything else in the show's history, caused a lot of people to stop watching.
Oh, wow. Okay.
People were not happy with the way his character left the show.
Interesting. He inspires devotion.
He does. And he's popping up in fucking everything lately, and I love it.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a Yeun fan.
Let's talk about the creepers, because we've met them in other parts of this movie, but they really take center stage here. I love when they start to talk, when they come up with a translator for them, because they're sassy, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
They're kind of funny.
Yeah, that's done really well.
I don't know if they think they're funny, but like things they're saying, when he's like, what will happen if we kill the baby? And she's like, death. And you're like, that's scary. But then then like when they're talking and she makes the high pitched noise, she's like, what does he say? What will my eyes will explode? And she's like, all will explode.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't even make sense.
It's a really good combination of the writing, the way that the alien stuff gets translated into these really terse little responses, and the way that she looks like a big crazy ass Muppet. So it's both scary and cool and also endearing at the same time.
Very human eyes in at least the mother creeper as well, which I think was obviously intentional, but also effective at making us feel for these creatures. And then when it comes out at the end that they were just bluffing about being able to kill them all with sound, because the little baby creeper does it and clearly everyone's fine. But I think the movie also makes them threatening in the sense that they can burrow through rock and ice very easily. So they're speculating, can they get onto the ship that way then? And I think there's enough there to conclude that they probably could just destroy the ship and overrun them if they wanted to.
They were a legit threat because, that part about them being able to burrow through rock is real. And the whole setup, it's almost like an old West quest thing, circling the wagons. You know, the ship is not just surrounded by the aliens, they're marching around it in a giant circle. And it's somehow that has this ritualistic feeling that feels extra scary. Like, what are they plotting? What are they doing? And we don't understand them at that point. It's a great image. This bunch of creepers of all different sizes marching in giant circles in the snow around this enormous ship. It's a really cool image.
And then when Marshall's clearly trying to target the leader and they all make these piles to hide where the actual leader is, that was really cool. That was a fun idea. And they allow the Mickeys to walk among them. And luckily they don't actually cut off any tails when they're out there, because I feel like that would have escalated things.
That would have been bad.
You had a note here, so I'll let you expand on this, but it did feel a little sweaty, the whole process of getting Marshall out there with the creepers and both Mickeys outside the ship. I was a little incredulous at the explanation for how that went down.
Yeah, because similar to the way things flip-flop and need to be explained a lot in that dinner scene, in this showdown scene, Marshall has like 3 different plans, and it's always someone talking him into the next version of the plan. It's like, oh, I'm going to kill Mickey one at a time. Which one's first? And it's, oh, don't kill him. We should do this stunt where you strap explosives to him. And then it's like, oh, you shouldn't let them go out there by themselves. You should fly over them in a ship. And oh, you shouldn't fly over them in a ship. You should ride out there and give a speech to the mama creeper. And it's like, it's a lot of work, right? Just having people convince them of each new plan and having to explain it on screen. It's like you said, feels sweaty. It feels laborious.
Yeah, but I couldn't help but feel some catharsis and cheer a little on the inside when Marshall does get blown up by Mickey 18 eventually.
Yeah.
Cool idea for how to wrap up the main conflict and then this big showdown, to have 18 sacrifice himself. It felt thematically appropriate, and you can draw the conclusion that like 17 had gained something through the time he spent with 18, where he'll be able to continue on his own and be a little more assertive.
Yeah, as far as like the meaning in that move, because 18 was obviously much more courageous than 17, but he also was self-sacrificing in that action of blowing himself up to take out Marshall. So they sort of come together in that moment, and he's fully redeemed for anything that you suspected him of earlier. It's good. It has a story with this very human heart about the evolution of this man who was so put upon and found himself an unlikely hero. It's great. That part of the story is great. It's just mostly the fucking tail sauce that pissed us off and made us enjoy it less.
And I do think 18's sacrifice was well foreshadowed with the way he's always volunteering to be the punished one of the two.
Yeah.
Like, not at first, but then when Timo comes around, he's like, just cut me up. I volunteer. He seems to have recognized that 17 deserves to live. He's a little more innocent.
All that stuff is just really strong, both because the writing of that part makes the most sense. It evokes the most interesting emotions. And obviously, Pattinson makes it all really sing.
So that's Mickey 17. Would you like to hear a little bit about where some of these people, what they're up to now?
Yeah. What Mickey are they up to now?
So written and directed by Bong Joon Ho. His first movie since Parasite. I know this was filmed early 2023, I want to say. So it did take a little while to actually get to the theaters. So it wasn't as big a gap as it seems.
Okay.
For those who are not familiar with Bong's career, his first 4 movies were made primarily for Korean audiences. And 2013's Snowpiercer was his first real attempt to appeal to Western audiences. And then Netflix original Okja, which has followed his method pretty closely now, which is he makes movies for both. His movies still do very well in South Korea, and they also have a built-in audience in America now.
Yeah, that's cool.
His next movie will be an animated film called The Valley. It's set for a 2027 release. I don't have a lot more information than that.
Interesting.
He seems like a guy with big ideas that sometimes aren't able to achieve practically in a live action setting. So I'd like to see how weird he can get with an animated movie.
Yes, my mind just goes wild. So imagining what he might be doing with that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Pattinson, our boy, our Pat.
Yeah.
He's been exceptionally busy since the Twilight Saga wrapped up back in 2014. Here's some of his movies. The Lost City of Z, great movie. Good Time, great movie. Tenet, it's a movie. The Batman, The Boy and the Heron, and Die My Love, which I just watched. It was quite good, but mostly for Jennifer Lawrence. He doesn't get a ton to do in it.
Oh, okay.
He's good in it, but worth it for Jennifer Lawrence for sure. He also did an uncredited voice in Marty Supreme. He was the British Open commentator.
Oh, that's fun.
So he's still working with the Safdies in some extent. At least we know that relationship's still good. This is what he has coming this year alone. He's got The Drama, which looks great with Zendaya. I saw the teaser trailer. I'm very interested in seeing what that's about.
Cool.
He's in The Odyssey.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Also with Zendaya.
Okay.
He's in Dune Part 3, also with Zendaya. This is getting weird.
Okay.
And Here Comes the Flood. I need to check if Zendaya's in this. Hold on.
It's like a stalking situation. I don't know who's stalking who.
Yeah, Tom Holland's got to get involved here and be like, enough's enough.
Break this up.
Phew. Okay. No Zendaya in this one. Daisy Edgar Jones and Denzel Washington. I'm really excited about this movie. It is a heist movie.
What's the name of that one again?
Here Comes the Flood.
Okay.
It's directed by Fernando Moraes. Great director, directed City of God.
Okay.
Favorite of mine from back in the day. He's a Brazilian director. Also directed The Two Popes.
Both of them.
Starring Denzel Washington and Robert Pattinson. Directed by Fernando Moraes and written by Simon Kinberg.
Oh, why do we dislike Simon Kinberg?
Let me count the ways. X-Men Dark Phoenix for one.
Oh.
He wrote and directed that one.
Simon.
He wrote the 2015 Fantastic Four. He wrote X-Men Apocalypse, dog shit ass movie. He wrote This Means War, dog shit ass movie. I wouldn't call the Sherlock Holmes movie, the Robert Downey Jr. one, dog shit, but I didn't like it. He has hits, but he's got more misses. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm still going to check it out with that cast.
Yeah, we got to see what they get up to.
He'll also star as Chris Hansen in the upcoming Prime Time, which is about Hansen's time on To Catch a Predator.
That is weird. Why is there a movie about that? And do I want to watch it? I don't know.
Wasn't there just a documentary that came out about it that got a lot of attention too? Feels like it's well-trod ground.
Oh, okay. That's not unusual that those things happen in sequence.
I know, like with Elizabeth Holmes, there was the documentary and then the TV show. And with WeWork, there was the documentary and then the TV show. Usually there's a book, then a documentary, and then a TV show. But not this time. They're going movie. And then
life cycle.
Yeah. Naomi Ackie, she's been acting since 2015, appearing in British films like Lady Macbeth, Yardie, and The Corrupted, and also British TV shows like Doctor Who, The Five, and Damalola, Our Loved Boy. She would appear as Janna in 2019's Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. That's a big way to like break into Hollywood in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, seriously.
Small part, but certainly a character I remember. And then in 2022, she had her biggest role yet as Whitney Houston in the biopic I Want to Dance with Somebody, which I never even heard of.
I didn't realize that. I should check that out.
The cast looks pretty good. And she was also an executive producer, which is surprising considering how early in her career she was. Like, you didn't think she'd have power to throw around, but she did.
Sounds enterprising.
And then in 2024, she starred opposite Channing Tatum in Blink Twice, which I talked about on here. And in 2025, she starred in Sorry Baby and The Thursday Murder Club, in addition to Mickey 17. Her 2026 slate includes Shelter, which is an action thriller starring Jason Statham.
Fun.
I Love Boosters. I'm really excited about this one. The long-awaited next movie from Boots Riley.
Oh, wow. Cool.
It's got Demi Moore, Keke Palmer, Ackie, Lakeith Stanfield. What a cast.
That'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. And I'm also excited for Clayface, which she will be starring in as well. A DCU film directed by James Watkins about the Batman villain Clayface.
There's a whole movie just about Clayface?
Yeah, it's written by Mike Flanagan.
Oh, of Stephen King fame?
Yeah, so you'd expect it to have kind of a horror vibe.
Yes, that sounds fun. I don't know a dang thing about Clayface. I thought he was a Dick Tracy villain, but it's kind of in the same mold.
Yeah, he freaked me out a lot in the Batman animated series from like the early 90s when I was a little kid. I hated his episodes. I would skip them because he's just a big blob of clay, but he could temporarily morph into other people. But it wasn't like Mystique where he could hold it forever. He had a short lifespan that he could pretend for.
That's
so,
fun.
You know, James Gunn's visions of the DCU, I could see it being like gross out comedy horror type of thing.
Totally can see that.
It's being described as body horror, so we'll see. But very interested. I do think we're going to get some interesting movies out of Gunn's tenure as the steward of the DCU.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
So that wraps up Mickey 17. Bad-eared listeners will remember I'm not telling you what's next because this month is all about surprises. But we've covered a lot of movies. It feels like we've just done one episode after another lately.
It does kind of feel like that.
And then after that, we'll be back on our bi-weekly schedule. I'm just going to do some older movies for a while. We've done too much recent stuff.
This gives us license. This next one's very topical, so that's going to be fun. And then it's back to digging out some oldies and enjoying for ourselves and exposing to our audience some weird old stuff that maybe they didn't even know about.
Yeah, in that vein, I just wanted to say I was very pleased with the reception to Buckaroo Banzai. It seems like that struck a nerve with a lot of people of a certain age that maybe had forgotten about that movie but had fond memories of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a special gem. I hope we can dig up more in that vein because that one brought a lot of the old fans out.
Not imminently, if you know what I have planned for you, unfortunately.
Okay.
We've been too positive lately. We got to get some shitty movies in here so we could be mean again.
That's fun.
Once in a while, you got to vent.
Once in a while, we get to go crazy.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe to the pod on your platform of choice. If you write us a review, or you can even leave episode comments on Spotify now, it's supposed to help with discoverability, so we would appreciate that.
And it's fun for us to interact with you that way.
While we're on the topic of interacting with us, you can email us if you'd like at blasphemepod@gmail.com with any questions, movie recommendations, just talk about movies, give us some feedback on the pod, whatever. We're always happy to hear from you.
Yeah, it's nice.
You can also follow us on Twitter at blasphemepod or Blue Sky blasphemepod there as well. And we'll see you next time in the Blast Zone.
See you next time in the Blast Zone.
The Blast Zone.